So maybe you've tried tapping or you've tried different neurolinguistic programming techniques on yourself for the purpose of changing. Maybe it's been goal setting, that type of thing, or maybe it's even visualizing or affirming things to yourself in order to improve your life, improve your circumstances. But it just doesn't seem to work. Why is that? Well, I'm going to share with you the secret sauce, as far as it looks to me, that will help you when it comes to making the changes that you desire. That's coming up next. Hi, my name is Alan Combies. I'm a transformational coach, and I believe in a less is more approach to personal development. In this video, I want to share something that looks really important to me when it comes to really just having a better experience of life. And if you're anything like me, you've been on a journey where you've tried different things. You're looking for relief in certain areas of your life. Maybe it's with anxiety, maybe it's with fears, maybe it's with accomplishing more in your life, getting unstuck and moving through things that seem to be holding you back, or just looking for answers in general. Well, I can relate, and it's been a study of mine for quite a while, and it's led me to actually become a coach and practitioner going back to 2009 when I first started seeing clients. And my background is a musician, a bartender, but it was my desire to figure out why some days were so difficult and other days seemed to flow. What was the difference? And so that curiosity has led me on a path that, I still play the drums, I still live a fairly normal life, but my vocation is coaching people and helping people see themselves more deeply. And that's really what this video is about. I've tried different techniques and different tools and studied different philosophies and everything else. And I would often come across frustration. Number one, something would work, right? Like, let's take tapping as an example. I would use something like tapping and get results and think, wow, this is it. I'm going to roll with this. I'm going to keep using this. And then I would have a challenge or problem in my life, and I couldn't figure out why this wasn't working anymore. And it got me really frustrated. Or maybe it's with certain NLP techniques, like the anxiety release technique or the phobia cure, or all of these different things. Whether I was working on myself or with somebody else, if it didn't work, I would get frustrated, and I wouldn't know why it would work so well one time and then not work another time. And it would lead me on this journey of searching and searching and searching. Well, it wasn't until, I think it was actually around 2010, when I came across the work of a gentleman named Sydney Banks. Now, he actually passed away in 2009. And in Sydney's words, in my words, from what I had heard from Sydney through videos and writings and things like that, he had an experience where he went from very, very insecure, riddled with insecurity, to seeing through the veil and basically like having a religious experience and seeing the root of our experience of life. And he eventually began to call what he was trying to communicate to people the three principles of mind, consciousness, and thought. Now, this is not a three principles video, but what I heard in Sydney's work and from teachers who had studied with Sydney that really moved me and touched me and continues to this day is what I really try to communicate through all of my work. And in essence, it is the fact that the way I have interpreted it is that we are pure consciousness. We are consciousness itself, and wherever we shine that light of consciousness is what we get back, right? So if I'm really focused on the news, let's say, and I'm watching the news and I'm watching it 24/7, the news cycle and everything else, and it's no secret that's predominantly negative imagery and it's all the bad stuff that's going on in the world. So if I focus on that, I'm going to continue to get that experience, and it's going to be my predominant experience. But it also works internally. I would argue that is an internal thing, even though it looks like it's coming from the outside. Our internal representation, so our thoughts, our memories, whatever thoughts we tend to focus on more of, we get more of in return. Our experience is reflected by what thoughts we predominantly focus on. Seeing that more and more deeply, what does that mean? Like, how does that help you? Well, the way it's really helped me is, well, I'll tell you a quick story. I was studying this stuff very deeply for a while back in like 2015, and I had an experience where I had a number of realizations and sort of insights that led up to this point. And I remember having a bit of an epiphany, and I realized that all of my problems, all of my ups and downs in life were nothing more than thoughts. Similar to when you wake up from a weird dream, and at first it feels like that dream really happened, right? And you think, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. And then what happens? You begin to wake up. And as you wake up, you realize that you were dreaming, and you're now in a different experience. Well, our thoughts are made of the same stuff as dreams, aren't they? And so we can be in a waking dream if we focus our thoughts and attention on that thought reality. We can be in sort of a dream state while being consciously awake, right? And so this really just sort of fascinated me. And I remember I had a couple weeks where I just saw it. I saw it so clearly. Every problem or issue that was coming into my awareness just glided right through me. And it was remarkable. It lasted for about 2 weeks, as I say. And I remember just sort of floating through life. It was a beautiful experience. And then something interesting happened. One day I woke up, and my phone was buzzing, and so I reached over and I looked at my phone, and I immediately had a bad feeling. I think it was like an unpaid bill that I had forgotten about, and it was bigger than expected, and it just really kind of irked me and rubbed me the wrong way. And I sort of held on to that feeling without knowing it, without realizing it. And I put my phone down, and I'm sort of shuffling through my morning, and I'm making my coffee, and all of a sudden it dawns on me, oh, I'm still feeling uncomfortable and bothered. Why is that? I thought I had figured this thing out. I thought I had reached the mountaintop. I thought I had figured it all out. But here I was struggling again, feeling this emotion, feeling this angst and this insecurity and all of these emotions. And the more anxious I got about being anxious, the more anxious I got. And I began to spiral. And I would try to figure out and think my way through it. Like, what was I doing? How did I do it before? Why is this bothering me now? And I really started getting angry, and I started getting emotional, and I started feeling despair. And this continued for probably 3 months, to the point where I nearly had a nervous breakdown. And thankfully, I had coaches and teachers that I was able to turn to, and I began to just get curious and really kind of look at what's really going on here. Why was I able to see through my experience so clearly one minute and then just be entangled in it in the next? There was a famous hypnotherapist named Milton Erickson, and if you're familiar with neuro-linguistic programming, he is actually the first therapist that, well, I don't know if he's the first, I believe he's the first, but the founders of NLP were introduced to Milton Erickson because they wanted to learn hypnosis. And Milton Erickson is widely known as the most renowned hypnotherapist, certainly of his day. Milton Erickson has been quoted as saying, "Patients are patients because they are out of rapport with their unconscious." Now, I believe what he means by unconscious is habitual thinking, patterns of thinking that are running underneath the surface. Now, if we look at my experience, 1 minute I was in rapport with my unconscious. I saw when my unconscious gave me something, I said, not gonna buy it. And it moved through me. When I felt out of rapport, right, with something that was a bit deeper, was something that I had had problems with, was something that was more hidden to me, I was out of rapport with my unconscious. And I got swept away by the feelings of insecurity, and one led to another, and I created a huge sort of thought-generated experience that was very anxiety-ridden. So he goes on to say that patients are people who have had too much programming, so much outside programming that they have lost touch with their inner selves. Now again, my interpretation of that is that we're all programmed, right? Now, in the case of what I was facing, I had deep beliefs that my value was tied to my income, and at that time I was really struggling, and it was really affecting my ego, right? So my pain was more around, oh God, what are people going to think of me? I should be here, right? All of these thoughts that were all based on ego, and I just didn't see it, right? But that was based on programming ideas that I had picked up, all of my life. I say in that first 7 years, we are prime hypnotic subjects. In other words, we are a wide open lens for everything to come in, because that's how we learn as human beings. That's how we adapt to our environment. And so because this was something that I just picked up, who knows how, where, how specifically, it doesn't matter, but it was there. And so what that meant was I needed to get more curious about it, and I had to get in rapport with myself in regards to that situation. Why am I sharing all of this? Well, hopefully to begin to expand your awareness when it comes to your challenges, problems, pain, issues, symptoms, whatever they might be, to get really curious about your relationship to your thoughts and your feelings. Whether thoughts create the feelings or the feelings create the thoughts, I think it's a symbiosis, right? It's one and the same. Because if we address the feelings, the thoughts change. If we address the thoughts, the feelings change, right? So they are one and the same. We're not always able to see it or consciously aware of it, but I like to say that they are one and the same. So when it comes to working on yourself, using tools, techniques, or working with other people, it's very common in neurolinguistic programming to say you have to get in rapport with your client so that you can, get the information you need and you can make the changes. But I think it goes much deeper than that. I think the key, number one, is to be in rapport with yourself. Be in rapport with your own unconscious mind. What does that mean? Well, if I'm nervous, if I'm anxious, if I think that this client is difficult, if I think that this client is beyond repair, if I have judgment, any other kind of judgment on this person, or if I think, oh, this is going to be a piece of cake, I'm just going to, right? Well, then I've got a lot of distracting thoughts there. And my client is not going to have a felt experience of being seen and being listened to, because I'm paying more attention to what's going on up here, right? So the more I recognize when I'm up here, I can drop into the moment and be very present for my client. And that right there does something. That does something. It does something for me, it does something for my client. Now, as we interchange, as we communicate, we're communicating more and more from soul to soul and less from ego to ego. The other thing is, when we're working on ourselves, I think it's obvious there, right? The more we see what we're actually up against, the more we can do the change work, right? So NLP is very famous. It's kind of been distilled down, right, to just a bunch of different exercises that you can pick up and use, everything else, like the swish technique and all of those things. Spin the feeling, all of it. All very, very valid techniques. But if you're trying to do it on yourself and it's not working, or maybe you're trying EFT and you don't feel like it's working, the key ingredient, the secret sauce, is to really get curious about how your experience is being created. And it's always being created the same way. Your consciousness is on thought, and you are feeling the feelings of that thought. If you can begin to see that understanding, that knowing, sometimes can allow, can bring instant insight and awareness in that moment. But other times it helps to use these different techniques, you see? Like if I'm having, maybe you've had a dream where you sort of became aware of that you were in a dream, and you began to sort of manipulate the dream. That's what I'm talking about. Remember, our thoughts are made of the same stuff as our dreams. And so if I'm in a dream and all of a sudden I realize, oh, this monster that's chasing me, I can just, shrink it down and throw it away or throw it over. I can manipulate. Well, we can do the same thing. And this is what really hypnotherapy and a lot of hypnotherapy and neurolinguistic programming and things of that nature, these techniques and even tapping, it's what it's about. It's about understanding and giving you the leverage to begin to change your internal structure. Right? And as you begin to realize that all you're really working with is thought, and that thought is like Play-Doh, it's like spiritual Play-Doh, right? You can do what you want with it. Well, to me, that's the most empowering way to look at change work. It's the most powerful way to look at change work. And I'm not perfect at it. I get lost still, and I think that's the journey. And that's the other key, is that if we let go of thinking we're going to reach a mountaintop and see it as a journey, as an ever expanding journey of awareness, and growing that awareness and expanding our awareness, well, that does something. That can do something for you. So the next time you feel like you've gotten swept away by thought, in the back of your mind, you can just begin to realize that even though you're getting swept away, even though this feels crazy, painful, wacky, whatever, overwhelmed, somewhere in the back of your mind, you know what's really going on, and that can help you. That can help you get through this experience. Now, I submit to you that there's a part of you that already knows this, and the fact that you're here watching this means that you've gotten through a whole lot of shit in your life. Well, what got you through it? Even in those darkest moments, something got you through it. And I submit to you that it was that awareness. At some point you had to let go, and you just took the next step. I hope that makes sense. I'd love to hear your comments on this. If this did make sense to you, please hit the like button. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. I really enjoy putting content out like this, and I love answering your questions too. So if you have questions, these videos are really just about my interpretation, working with clients, being a coach, exploring the nature of consciousness and behavior and how the mind works. I just like to geek out on this stuff. So if you have questions, please put them in the comments, or you can reach out to me directly, or you can go to my website at alancombies.com, and I offer free consultations while supplies last. All right, that's it for today. This is Alan Combies, Transformational Coach, Stress Management Consultant. This is Morning Coffee with Alan. We'll see you in the next one.